Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's OpenBOM webinar. My name is Steve Hess, and I am the Director of User Experience at OpenBOM. I'd like to welcome you all for joining today. I see a few people are still joining. Let me just give a few seconds. Okay, terrific. Okay, it looks like everyone's in. I see a few. Few names I recognize, and I'd like to welcome any of the new folks. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Again, this is the OpenBOM weekly webinar. Today's topic is design through purchase process. This is going to be part one of a two-part webinar. Today will be kind of back to basics. This is we're kind of doing some back to basics in the month of October 2020. So let's go ahead and get started. Some webinar basics. Everybody is muted. We're really focused on time here. You can raise your hand during the webinar or send a message to support@openbom.com, and I'll try to get right. I will answer all mail and I'll get right back to you. The next thing is we're going to be using the demo data set that we released a few months ago, and if you have an account that's older than a few months, you might not have the latest version of it. So what I'd like you to do right now is just if you're listening to this recorded, go ahead and pause it, or if you're watching live, just go ahead and start OpenBOM, go to the help area, down to manage demo data, and click on add demo data. Take about 20 seconds. We'll go ahead and instantiate some demo data into your account. If you're worried about extra stuff in your account, you can, as you can see, you can click delete later and clean it all out. But we're going to use some of that information here. Here is the slide. The definition slide. I'm going to let you read this, but the top one, bill of materials, right there, list of raw materials and other things that define the list and quantities that we need to build a product. Some other things we'll be talking about today are catalogs. We might refer to those as item masters. If you're in the PLM business, you may refer to them as other things. Catalogs are the list of parts that we kind of have at our company, and an item is one of those parts or assemblies. So items are in catalogs, and catalogs feed into bills of material. Okay, let's talk about the OpenBOM kind of work and data flow. And this is gonna take us into the purchasing process, which we're going to be focusing on now. This is kind of the big picture of what OpenBOM is. We start with some design, we bring in some information about vendors and parts, we build bills of material, we place orders, we reduce those orders down to purchase orders based on the items that are in that order, and then we send those purchase orders either out to PDF or Excel, maybe we send it to QuickBooks, maybe it goes to NetSuite or something else. So that's just kind of orient you. That's the big picture view of OpenBOM. What we're going to be talking about today is a little bug here. This is not the QuickBooks purchase flow. This is just the purchasing flow. So so we're going to talk about today about the contribution of the data that's in the catalog, the part number, quantity on hand. It's where we're going to set the vendor. We're going to build a BOM of 1 unit. So we're going to work with the wireless router today. So we're going to build a bill of material to build one router, and then we're going to do some planning, and then we're going to say, look, I want to build 11 of these routers. What do I do? We're going to start talking about vendors and quantity gaps and things like that. And then finally, we're going to build a purchase order, and we're going to make that look like a PO and send it out to our vendor. So this is what we're going to be discussing today. Some basics here as well. I want to make sure everyone understands that there's be a recording of this webinar as well as a link to this slide deck. So there's a few things that I want to change here. We're going to do 11 of those. Okay. So what are we going to be doing in our planning basics today? We're going to talk about what the catalog is. The catalog is the item master. Each item has an entry in the catalog. The BOM denotes the usage of the item. So if you have something in the catalog, you don't have, let's say quantity per se. You have maybe quantity on hand, but you don't have the quantity that you need. That's mastered in the BOM. Sorry, I'm making a few changes here. And the BOM denotes the usage. So if we have 10 screws, that's where we put the quantity to build a single unit. We put the quantity of 10 in there. The order BOM is what scales us up. So if we get an order for 11 routers, we're going to deal with that in our order bomb, and then our purchase order kind of brings it all together. All the items that we need to build 11 routers reduced down to each one of their individual vendors. So I know I went through that quickly. We're going to go into it in much more detail. I am sensitive to everyone's time. I'd like to make sure we're out of here in 30 minutes or less today. So, okay, here's the case study that we're going to be talking about. We're going to take a router through the planning and placing an order. We're going to prepare a vendor list for our company. We are going to create a catalog of our company's router parts. We're going to assign vendors to those items. We are going to get an order from a customer for 11 of our routers, and we're going to process that order and reduce it down to POs. So those are the steps we're going to go through, and we're going to do them live here with OpenBOM. And I'd like to start with the first lesson is going to be to create a vendor list. Now I'm going to move this over to another screen so I can jump over live into OpenBOM and just go through this live. You'll be able to refer to this back later on as you're watching this, as you're reviewing this recording. So, okay, I'm going to put that over there. And go full screen here. Let me see if I can make a slight adjustment. Okay. Okay, I think maybe we can see that a bit better on the, yeah, somebody was saying that the text was a little bit small. I hope that's a little bit better for people on the line. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a vendor list. There is some sample vendor lists, as you might imagine, in the sample data that you just installed. But we're going to create our own for our company. So we're going to go to our vendor list area of the dashboard, click on new vendor list, and I believe we are calling this webinar number 31 BL. Okay, this is our vendor. This is what an empty vendor list looks like, and I'm going to start, typing, some vendor information. Machine shop, and he's got a phone number and an address and some vendor contact. So this, I could go through and type all of this. Now, as you might imagine, we don't want to do that here in our webinar. So I'm going to add a series of blank lines and return back to my dashboard. And I'm just going to copy some information in from one of my existing ones. So I'm going to open this sample vendor up. I'm going to copy all of these lines here. Not going to copy this last column. It doesn't apply in my next one. I'm going to say copy. And I'm going to go to my webinar vendor list and just paste that in. Okay. So this is what our webinar vendor list looks like. This is something that's used in all bills of material at my company. And so it's important to kind of build this, and we'll be reusing this for all products and all other bills of material. I'll let you spend a little more time on that. We've got vendor list number 1 ready to go. Let's look at lesson number 2, preparing our catalog. Okay, we are going to, in this exercise, take a little deeper dive into the sample data for the wireless router catalog. So let's go ahead, go back to our dashboard, go down to catalogs, and let's open up that SolidWorks items catalog. Okay. Okay, so the catalog is where all the items in my company are mastered. Now, I could have created this catalog, could have imported it from Excel, maybe I brought it in from CAD. I could have typed it in. There's a number of ways I could have built this catalog. And over time, I've added cost and a lot of other information to it as well. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to associate that vendor list that we just created with this catalog. And I do that using the Set Vendor button. And I'm going to choose this webinar VL that we just created. and say close, and we see a vendor list and a preferred vendor list column are added to our catalog. And I can just start down my list here of defining my vendors. There's a lot of ways to do this. I can choose that. I can do a ribbon copy. I can do look ahead. It's a number of different ways that I can fill that out. So as you can see, I've kind of gone ahead a little bit and filled in the vendor for the rest of the products that are in our catalog. Very important that we have vendor specified for each item in our catalog. Also very important, something we want to take a look at here is quantity on hand. We want to be sure that we have the quantity on hand defined in our catalog. This is where the order BOM is going to look to calculate demand. In other words, if I need, 8 of these items, I want to make sure that I have at least 8 of them on hand, or we're going to generate some demand, which in the end will generate a PO. So for now, this is a rather mature catalog. This is what a good catalog, would probably look like. You've created a catalog of your items. We've added some vendor information. We've made sure the quantity on hand has, is up to date. Anything where quantity on hand is set to 0, we're just going to assume we have none on hand and will generate demand for the entire amount. We'll cover that in a little more detail. So we've just finished lesson number 2, where we've updated both. We've clicked on set vendors, and we've specified a vendor for each item, and we checked that we had quantity on hand. Okay. Go back here to number 3. Okay, we in lesson number 3, we assigned those vendors, and I do want to point out that that there is a column that was added here called preferred vendor. Preferred vendor is if we're having multiple vendors associated with a particular item. We're going to deal with this in part 2 of the webinar, but for now, just know that when you click on set vendors, you'll get that preferred vendor column. We're going to ignore that right now for this webinar. Okay, so for lesson number 4, we are going to build a BOM. And again, we're going to use the one of the sample BOMs, the demo wireless sample BOM, demo wireless router sample BOM here. We're going to make a copy of it. We're going to start here. We're going to go to top level BOMs. It makes it easier to view my view my dashboard. All BOMs has a lot of other sub levels mixed in there, but I want to go to my top level BOM for my wireless router. Select it, don't open it, just select it and click on copy up here. There's detailed instructions on this in the in the slide deck. Okay. We're going to go to copy, and we're going to use this little pencil up here and give this a new part number, WR31, wireless router WR31, and we're going to add WR31 there so that we have a unique name for this as well. We're going to update the BOM. So now we have our WR31-A. Forgive me, I was doing a little testing earlier, and I think I had. There we go. Okay, I already had that one. Created. Okay, so we have WR31-A. For our wireless router. This is the bill of material for our wireless router. If we remember back in that slide deck, in the image we saw, that the catalog information flows into the bill of material. There's a lot of videos on how catalogs and BOMs work together. I'm not going to dive down into that, but you can tell information is coming from a catalog because it's in these particular brackets. Costs and other things. Quantity on hand is something we're definitely interested in this webinar. So we've got a BOM, WR31A for our wireless router. Okay. Let's go back and see what this looks like now in our dashboard. Okay. Now we have WR31A. This is the one that we just made. And we're going to take an order from this. Customer comes along and says, hey, Steve, I want 11 of those. So in order to do that, we're going to use the order BOM feature. So we're going to open that bill of material. This thing has been built out and has all the correct quantities and items in it that I need. And I'm going to say, okay, terrific. My company just got an order for 11 of these. I click on OpenBOM, and the OpenBOM production order flyout will appear. I don't happen to have any orders for this yet, but I'm going to create a new order batch for 11 items, and this is going to be from my my customer Mindful Electronics. They want 11. Okay, done that. So we've just created an order bomb. We see that that appears over here. Okay, so these are where the order bombs would appear for a particular bill of material. Let's go ahead and open up that order bomb and see what we have. Okay, so this is starting to get a little interesting now. And this is telling me here is this is order 1 for my wireless router 31A demo BOM, and I've got 11 units being calculated. This is where OpenBOM starts looking at the quantity on hand, the quantity required, and the number of units being requested. And then that's when we start calculating the quantity required and the quantity gap. Here's a perfect example. Each one of these routers takes 4 screws. Okay, that's pretty simple. Hold the clamshell together, 4 screws. I've got 2 on hand. I'm ordering 11 routers. That's 44 total. I've got a quantity gap of 42 screws. Fantastic. I get those from Grainger. I specified that in my my catalog for that particular item. All right, let's look at a couple other ones. Here's another one. Each one of these takes just one. I've got, I've got 8 on hand. I'm going to need 11. I've got a quantity gap of 3. All right, okay, let's look down here. Okay, down here, each one of these takes 1. I've got 13 on hand. I only need 11. I have no quantity gap. I get those from Steve's Molding. Okay, so we've gone through and done this calculation for every item, including labor, in this bill of material. All right, so what's the next step? Let's create some purchase order. So let's look down this list first and see. We've got some vendors. I've got Grainger, I've got McMaster, got some in-house work that's going to be done. I've got Steve's Molding. Looks like I get a number of parts from Steve's Molding supply. I get some A1 stamping here. So I would expect OpenBOM to generate POs for each one of these vendors. Not I would expect it to, we will. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's click on generate POs. I get a message down here and I click on that and I'm taken right to the PO dashboard inside OpenBOM. All right, so let's look at something. Let's look at something a little more interesting here. Where's Steve's Molding? We had a lot of parts from there. So let's go look at the Steve's Molding PO. Okay. So this is the same grid pattern is going to appear here, but keep in mind that this is particular now to Steve's Molding. All the parts in this PO are for Steve's Molding. Again, quantity gaps and other things are calculated. You can make some changes in here, if you need to. Quantity gap is what we're going to send to the supplier. Okay. All right. So you can make some adjustments here if you need to. We're just going to take this, directly as it is in our next webinar. We'll do a little more advanced work and make some adjustments. Right now, we're just going to take this PO, and we've got some choices here. I can send it out to QuickBooks. I can export it. There's a lot of information that might come out, but I'm probably want to send out quantity gap, part number, thumbnail, maybe the cost, description, the unit. Let's go ahead and make a PDF of that. Now I could send out all these properties to an Excel and read it into another ERP system or something as a PO. This is constructed right now as a PO. Let's just export it to a PDF, see what it looks like. Fantastic. Okay, so this is what we were trying to get down to, was what does a PO look like that I would send to my supplier? Now, I probably should have removed these 2 lines for quantity 0 before creating a PDF, and I could go back and do that. But now what we've got is something that looks like a traditional PO. We picked up, I'll show you where we picked up this, my company logo that came from my profile settings. So I use the company logo to set that up in here. The other information came from my vendor list. So you want to be sure that that information in the vendor list is correct. We generated a PO number automatically and a PO date, and we put the items in. So that's, you know, that's the one for Steve's molding. Let's go back and maybe take a look at one of the other ones. Maybe here's the one for Octopart. I don't remember how many parts we had in there. It looks like we had a couple PCB parts in there. Okay, we can do the same thing. We can send it to QuickBooks. We can shoot it out to a PDF. So this is really where we get down to that many POs for one order bomb. So I'm going to leave you with this right now and go back and kind of review what we did. It was a little bit of jumping around there in the beginning, but let's go back to this presentation and kind of review what we just did. And like I said, there are detailed slides in here to go through each one of those steps that we just did. Reviewing our order bomb, creating our purchase orders, reviewing it, sending them out. Okay, so there's a couple things I'd like to review with everybody, and I'm keeping an eye on the time. I'd like to wrap this up here in just a few minutes. The design through purchase process is a series of operations in OpenBOM. We saw a slide right in the beginning where we saw how the data flowed, but when we go through the items here, we're going to create a vendor list. That's something that's important for every company, regardless of what product we're building. We're going to prepare a catalog of items. These are the items that are used to make the products that I ship. So, and those can come from CAD, or maybe we import it by Excel, or maybe we typed it in, or any number of other places. It's important to assign the vendor list in there and to go through and specify a vendor for each item in the catalog. So this is a vendor list preparation and catalog preparation. We created a BOM and assigned that particular catalog to the BOM. Many companies may have just one catalog. Other companies may have several. In our next webinar, we'll deal with a little more complex purchasing situation where we have several catalogs. We got an order from the customer and we created an order BOM. In our case, we created an order BOM for 11 routers. We got that order BOM on the screen and reviewed the contents of it, clicked on the create purchase order button, and we got a list of purchase orders in our dashboard. We opened each one of those and decided what we wanted to do with it. We could send it to our ERP or QuickBooks, or we could PDF it out like we did in our example. So this is the process that you want to go through for getting down to POs. All right, so what are the couple of things that come up during troubleshooting? Most of the problems that I see with customers are they either don't have quantity on hand or cost or part numbers correct. All of these issues generally generate from the catalog. Duplicate part numbers can definitely be a problem, even if they're in different catalogs. Keep in mind that OpenBOM kind of brings multiple catalogs together into a bill of material. If you have 2 catalogs assigned to the same BOM and you have a part number that's duplicated in both of those, you might have trouble. Be sure you have the proper vendor list assigned. You saw that we could have multiple vendor lists, so make sure that you have the correct one assigned if you're not getting the PO that you expect. Quantity on hand is important. If you want to calculate quantity gaps correctly, you'll need to make sure you keep quantity on hand up to date. Right now, that is somewhat of a manual process. There are a number of ways you can import changes to quantity on hand from Excel. They're quite easy. I think there's a video on that. But just keep in mind that quantity on hand is really important if you're going to calculate gaps. And finally, something I've seen recently, be sure you do not have a property called quantity in your catalog. That can really frustrate things. Quantity goes in the BOM and only in the BOM. And then finally, once you ship an order, and I'm going to jump back and show you this, should use the release to production on the order bomb. And this is how we update the quantity on hand. So this is something that I maybe really didn't deal with deeply enough here. Let's go down to our order bomb. Here's our 31A order bomb. So we have, generated purchase orders and sent them out to the customer, and got the products in the door and built 11 of these. Right now our quantity on hand is still sitting at whatever these numbers were originally. And sort of the final act that you want to do here is release this to production. You'll get a message here saying what's going to happen. Quantity on hand will be decremented. And when you do that, we will go back to that catalog and update the quantity on hand for those items. So you can see now that our numbers have dropped here quite a bit. And, some of them have actually gone down to 0 because we had some gaps. So, so this is how you'll update your quantity on hand based on your demand that came from your first order bomb. So you released that order bomb, quantity on hand was updated, and then we're just going to take one last look at the bill of material for this. And when we look at the order bombs for this bill of material now, we're going to see that its status has been updated to ordered. So that last little bit is important to use OpenBOM to automatically update your quantity on hand. So again, this is a basics flow through this. We're going to deal with this in a lot more detail, or in some more detail, in part 2 of this webinar, which we'll probably do in a few weeks. It has been, it's always a pleasure having everybody here. This slide deck, which will be shared with all attendees, has some links to more information, some nice blogs, some basics. Always look at help.openbom.com. It's a great place to get started. List of all the webinars. This is the 31st in the series of webinars. And send your questions or comments to support@openbom.com. We answer and respond to every one of them. So I hope you enjoyed. If you have any, like I said, if you have any questions, please send them along. My name is Steve Hess, Director of User Experience at OpenBOM. It's been a pleasure having you today. Thank you.